Welcome back, guys. Yesterday we have gone through different pens and then we have started the different shapes. We have gone through text shape and a line shape. I come to know that you were not able to see the output of all those programs. So what we have done is we have uploaded all those demo codes in the e-content. You can download those e-content files and run those programs to have a look at different outputs. Play with the settings so you'll come to know that what all those settings are. Today I'll run the text and line file again, and then we will go through the different shapes. We'll cover rectangle shape quickly. We have already seen the circle shape, so there is no demo file for circle today. So this is the text file where we were having one pen and then there were three different texts. Now the first text we are creating at 2020 position, and this is the string that we want to display. We also set a font for our first text, which is courier font name. It will be bold, italic, and 15 pixel will be the size. Second text we are adding will be at 60 position, and then there is a string. If you want to have multi-line string, you can have /n in between to create a new line. Now this will be the default font, default thickness, and default font size. For text 3, we display it at 10 and 100 position. Then there is a string. We change the color of the font. We also underline it and we strike through this third text also. Okay, so these are the settings by which you can have whatever settings you want for your text. Now let me run this code to have a look at the output once. Okay, so this is the output where we have the first text bold italic, second text with normal text 2 lines because of /n, third one with the red color underline and strike through. So this was the output of text program. I'll close this one. Next example was the line. So we create a scene, add that scene in the primary stage, we show the stage, that's okay. But in that scene we add one node. that node is actually the pen, simple pen. Now to create that pen, we are actually creating a custom class here in the same file, line pen, and we instantiate that line pen object. So let's have a look at the line pen class that extends pen class, and in that pen class line pen class we have a constructor, and that constructor creates two different lines here. So the first line we created at, look, when we say there is a line, we need to have two different points, starting point, ending point. And when there is a point, a coordinate values will be x and y. So this is start x, start y, and then this is end x, end y. Now if I have starting and ending position same, then it will only create a single dot. It's okay because we are going to change few of these properties later because we want to bind it with some other property. So later what we do is we bind end x and y property of line 1 to actually the width and height of our window. So I'm going to take width property and height property, and I'm going to subtract few pixels from that, because if I do not subtract this one, then it will touch the border of my window. So that's how we bind the end x and end y property. So ending point of my line 1 will be somewhere in the bottom right corner. Okay, then we strike through, we set a stroke and color also. Now stroke width will define the thickness of our line, and we add that line. Similarly, we created second line, we bind few properties, set a stroke, color, and add that also in the pen. So this object will be returned here and it will be added to the scene. So let me save this code and run this code once. So you'll have the look at the output. So this is the output. From top left corner to bottom right corner, that is line 1, and from top right corner to bottom left corner, this is line 2. And as long as we are binding the property, this is what the effect you will have, because we have binded the property of our screen, that's the window actually, width and height property, so lines will automatically resize. This is the output for the second program yesterday we have covered. Let's go through next program, new for today, rectangle. Look, when you go for rectangle, you need to have 4 parameters. The top left corner, that is the position where you want to display your rectangle, and then we need to have width and a height, width of the rectangle and height of the rectangle. So what this line will do is it will display a rectangle at position 25 and 10. That's the starting point to draw your rectangle, and this rectangle will have width of 60 pixel and height of 30 pixel. Now we stroke with black color and we fill this rectangle with white. And I also want to label it, so I simply write one text just before my rectangle and we also add that in the pen, right? So let me run this code where we will be having only one rectangle right now. So that will create a small rectangle on the screen and labeled with R1. Simple normal rectangle, stroke with black color and filled with white color. Okay, now that's the normal rectangle. Now let's have a look at few different ways of defining rectangles or having few different types of rectangles. Now this is the second one, again a normal rectangle, but we do not define stroke and a fill color for this. Okay, so by default it will be filled with black color. Then there is a third rectangle. Okay, again a normal rectangle filled with black because we are not filling it or stroking it. But here what we need to have a look at is the set arc width and the set arc height. Now this will actually make your corners rounded. So to have a default rectangle will have a sharp corners. Now if you want to have a rounded corner, then you can set arc width and arc height. Arc width is the horizontal radius and arc height is the vertical radius for that curve. Okay, so let me run this code now and have a look at 2 more rectangles on the screen. So R2 is the default rectangle, default fill color is black. R3 is again the rectangle with rounded corners. So arc width and arc height takes effect here. So that's it for rectangles. Now you can play with the rectangles and you can have any figure on the screen. So this code, what it does is it is creating multiple rectangles and it is rotating those rectangles with this equation, and it is setting a stroke color to the random and filling it with white. Okay, so let me save and run this code once to have the output, and this is what you get. There are 4 different rectangles rotated with different angles, and all 4 rectangles are having different stroke color because of math.random. Okay, so that's all about rectangle. Next we want to see is the ellipse. This is where actually we want to start at our today's lecture. So what I'll do is I'll go with the code directly, and we do have presentation slides. We will upload those presentation slides in the e-content, so you may go through those slides one by one later. So ellipse, whenever we say ellipse, then there will be a center, and for ellipse there are 2 different radius x and radius y. All these are double values. Okay, so the first 2 parameters are the center x and center y, and then third parameter is x radius, fourth parameter is y radius. So what this will do, it will create one ellipse. We add that ellipse in the pen, we add a pen in the scene added to primary stage, and primary stage is displayed. So if I run this code, we will have a normal one ellipse. Default fill color is black, so we have that here. Now if you do not want to have black fill color, then you may go for stroke and fill if you want. So you fill it with white color, then definitely you need to have a stroke, so stroke it with black color, and then if you run a code, you will have simple outline of your ellipse. Okay, that's a normal ellipse. Now like we played with the rectangle, we can also play with the ellipse. So here we are creating 16 different ellipse, all with same center, same radius and all, but the stroke color is randomly decided, filled with white, and rotation is something else. So with this equation we rotate each and every ellipse with different angle. So if I save this part and run it, like rectangle, you will have different ellipses here, and that's a figure that has been generated by this code. Okay, that's all about ellipse. Next one is the arc. When we say arc is nothing but the circle or ellipse, but it is not a full circle or a full ellipse. It is a part of that circle or the ellipse. Okay, so definitely there will be same parameters. We need to have a center first, so x and y. Then we need to have x radius and y radius, so x radius and y radius also. And then we want to have the start angle of our arc, and then the length, what length we want of that arc. So these are the parameters for creating one arc. Now we want to fill it with red color, and we will look at different styles. There are 3 different styles for the arc. One is round, another one is open, and the third one is chord. We'll have those different types in the same example later. Okay, so we are looking at the first type, round here. We also label it and we add everything in the pen. So let me save. Right now we are creating one arc with this center, x and y radius, starting angle, and then the length. The starting angle is 30 degree positive 30 degrees, so upward, and then starting from that 35-degree length we want. So let's run this code, and this is what we get. Okay, fill color, we set it to red, so red color is filled. Then from this is the center, and if you look at this starting angle, then that is 30, and from 30 angle 35 degree is the length, and round it, so this is what we get. Color will be filled to the center, that is round. Okay, now let's have a look at few different arcs. Okay, the second arc that we want to create here is this one. We will be following the same center for all the arcs. Okay, and x and y radius will also be the same. So we are creating arc of a circle, but what we will do now is we will change the starting angle. Even length will be same for all the arcs, so we will be drawing this 4 different arcs in the 4 different quadrants. And if you just want to change the quadrant, definitely it's 90 degree, so we will be adding 90 degree everywhere. So the second arc that we want to create, we fill it with white color, and we say its type is open. Okay, the open will make it open, it will not fill that color to the center. So from center to the arc there won't be any lines. Arc will be simple arc line. Okay, rest of the things are common. You set a stroke, you label it and add everything and so on. Okay, so that's open. Third arc is the chord type. Okay, and the fourth arc is also the chord type, but we fill it with green color, whereas the third one was filled with white color. So third and fourth are almost same, the change is in the fill color. And let's have a look at those outputs. We'll come to know what the differences are. So the first one, arc 1, is the round type, then 90 degree. Arc 2 is open, so there is only the arc stroke, no fill color here because we set it to white. Then we again go for 90 degree more, that is arc 3, and this is the chord. Now when you say chord, your arc end will be joined. Okay, and there will be line. Now we set a fill color of arc 3 to be white, so there is white. But if you look at the fourth arc, we set a fill color to green, so this is what we get. This is round, this is open, and these two are the example of chord. But in a chord, when you set fill color, it will be filled only in this region. So that's the example of arc. And then the last one we want to see is the polygon and polyline. Polygon and polyline are almost same with each other. Polygon is the entire closed path, whereas polyline will not have a closed path. So first and last point will not be joined to each other in polyline, whereas polygon will be the closed loop. You will have that difference once we run this code. Okay, so let's start with the polygon first. So a polygon requires multiple points, so it has a list of points, double points. Okay, so what we do here is we are actually creating a triangle, and when we say triangle will require 3 points, 3 endpoints. So I'm starting my triangle to draw from the position 150. From 150 I'm defining my second point to 150, 150. and from 150 150 I'm defining my third point to be 50 and 150. So 150 is somewhere on the top, 150 150 will go on the right side bottom, and 50 150 will come on the left side bottom. And as it is a polygon, it will join this last point with the first point, so it creates a full triangle, and we add that triangle. So let's run this code to have a look at the triangle. Full black filled color default, and it is a triangle. If you do not want to fill it, then you may go for fill color and stroke also. So fill color white and only stroke to the black. So this is a normal triangle. Okay, so if you just want to have a polygon, then instead of if you just want to have a polyline, then instead of polygon you can change it to polyline. Okay, instead of polygon you may change it to polyline. And if I change it to polyline, let's run this code and have a look at what is the output. So this is what the output is. Polyline will not have a closed loop, so last point and the first point will not be joined in polyline. That's the only difference. Rest everything is same. okay, so there are a few more polygons and polylines. Okay, we have those examples here. So let me again make changes to polygon, back to the polygon example, and this is what actually creating a different polygons with different angles, and draw that. It is actually creating hexagon. So let me comment all these things right now and uncomment this code. So we create a polygon. Now look, when I create a polygon, I'm not giving any points here. So in my constructor, if I do not give any points, then what we need to do is later we add points in our polygon. So where to add it? So our polygon has a list of points, and we can have that list by getPoints method. Now this getPoints method will return a list, and that list will be observable list of double values. Fine. So what we do is, in that list we add different points later. So we add a point in the list. A point, that means it need to have two coordinates. So the first one is the x coordinate, second one is the y coordinate. Now all these lines actually calculate proper points in my screen. So I'm having width and height to be 200, then the center position is calculated by dividing it by 2, and then randomly I'm creating one radius for my hexagon, and based on the center and radius values I'm calculating my different points. Okay, so this is just a mathematical equation. But let's run this code and have a look at how this polygon is being displayed. So this is what we have, hexagon created using that equation, those equations and points. So what it actually does is, it is calculating these endpoints, and the point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4, point number 5 and point number 6. As long as it is a polygon, it will join the last point and the first point, so we have a closed loop with hexagon. So that's the polygon and polyline. So if you change this polygon to polyline, you will not have a closed loop, but you will have first and last point empty, right? So this is where it has started calculating the points. so you do not have the close loop here. That's a polyline. So let me move on back to the slides. We have gone through ellipses. Look, our presentation slides covers all those parameters and methods. You may later go through these slides once we upload this content on the e-content. Okay. Next thing that we want to cover is the event-driven programming. So let's first understand what is event-driven programming. So whenever we have a GUI-based program, then we create those graphical user interfaces to interact with user. So actually user interacts with your program, your software, and those interactions will have few events. Whenever there is any event, then your code or your program need to react based on the events. So actually user is driving your program based on events, and that's why it is called event driven programming. So events may be kind of a button click or mouse click or mouse movement or keystrokes from your keyboard and so on. So based on those events, we need to perform few tasks. So an event is nothing but an object in terms of a program. So for every event, we create an object, and those objects will be based on the source, event source. If button has been clicked, then the event source will be the button object, and from that button object we create an event object. So look at this example here in the bottom of the slide. This only gives you the example where if user clicks on a button, then how do we handle that event? So your GUI part will have one button. Clicking a button will create one event. So this button becomes source object for us. From this button, we will create one event object. Okay, and from this event object, we will create a handler also, which will handle that event. And handler is nothing but a code that we want to run once button is clicked. Okay. So these are the different user actions, and those user actions are performed somewhere on the object. Based on the object, we have event type, and from those event types, if we want to have a handler for those events, then those handlers must be registered with the last column methods. Okay, methods listed in the last column. Now this is just for your information right now. We will be using all these methods and event objects later in this examples. So if user clicks a button, then the source object will be button. Event type will be action event, and to handle those kind of events, we need to set on action method where we pass our event handler. Okay, if user press enter in a text field, then the object is a text field. It is again action event, and to run our handler, we need to have set on action method. So likewise, there is a radio button clicking, check or uncheck. There is a checkbox, check or uncheck. Then there is a combo box. It is a drop down menu. So you select one item from the drop down menu, and so all these are the action events till now. And to have those action events, you have a method set on action, and there you pass your event handler. Then there may be few mouse events. So mouse pressed, mouse released, mouse clicked, mouse entered. So you hover your mouse on an element and so on. You drag something. So those are the mouse based events. And there may be keyboard key based events. So key pressed, key released, key typed, and so on. Okay, so these are the different events, and in those cases you need to have the methods which are set on mouse clicked, set on mouse released, set on mouse exited, or set on key pressed, set on key released, or set on key typed, and so on. So these are the methods that we need to have in our code, and in those methods we will pass our handler. Handler is nothing but a method function where we write what we want to perform. Okay, we'll see these methods one by one wherever we need in the example code. So we right now we already know that we need to have one object where event will be performed. Based on that event, we have the event object, and we pass that event object to event handler. Event handler is nothing but a method which will be executed when the event is performed. So event handler or a listener, okay, it's nothing but a method, but we need to register that method to the event so that whenever event is performed, that method will be called. So handler or a listener is nothing but a method object that must be registered. Okay, that must be registered so that there is a link between event and the handler. And to register that, let's have a look at what we need to do. So any event handler we want to register, that must be the event handler object. Okay, event handler is nothing but inbuilt class, so we need to create an object of that class and then we register it. To register that, what we do is we use our source and then we use a method set on action. So these are the methods that we have seen just before few seconds. Set on action, set on mouse over, set on mouse click, set on key pressed, and so on. And in that method we pass our handler object. So this handler can be of action event. If it is action event, we call set on action method. So if it is if that handler is related to mouse event, then maybe set on mouse pressed or set on mouse enter, and so on. If that handler is related to keyboard events, then you may call a method like set on key pressed, set on key released, and so on. So this is what actually is happening. Here on your screen you have two different images. Let's focus on the upper part only. So if user creates an action, or user triggers an event, then what we need to have is we need to register that event with event handler. So set on X event type, so set on action, set on mouse click, set on key pressed, and so on. And in the bracket we pass a listener or we pass a handler. So that listener is nothing but, look at the right side, it's a listener class object which actually takes handler, so event handler. So just below this first image, the bottom part, you will have the perfect example. If user creates an action, so we set on action listener. Now this listener is a custom listener class. A custom listener class is because we define what we need to perform when this action is created. Okay, so that is custom listener class, and that actually extends the event handler class because this need to be of type event handler. So this is the flow. Actually we will implement this code and then you will be much clear about this one. So let's have a code related to events. I'm moving back to my my Eclipse code. Let me close all these files right now. Okay, and I do have one event code written already, so I'll open that here and we will understand what is happening there. So I have a demo class and it extends application because I want to have GUI based application. So we create one horizontal box, and in that horizontal box I'm setting some paddings, and then I add a label, one simple text. Later I'll explain why I have hbox as a member of my class instead of having it within start method. Okay, so we have one hbox horizontal box with one label. Then we have another hbox and we have the buttons there. There are two different buttons, align left and align right, and we add those buttons in this second hbox. Then we set those hboxes, okay, in hbox 1 is in the center part, hbox 2 is in the bottom part of my screen. Okay, and to have those center part and bottom part, we have a bordered pen, and then we show the primary stage and all. Forget about these two lines right now, we'll understand that later. So normal construction of our window is upper part will have one text, bottom part will have two buttons. So let me save and run this code once to have a look at the output, what is there. So upper part has one text and bottom part has two different buttons. Now these are the buttons. Now when user clicks on these buttons, actually user is creating an action event. So if user clicks here, then we need to continuously listen that event, and when user clicks we need to perform few tasks. So as this button says, align left and align right. So align right, if I click on this button, my text should be aligned to the right side. That's what we want. So if I click here, text is on the right side. So when there is a click, we change few properties of text, and that code has been written in that handler. Okay, so now we will focus on clicking events of these buttons. So let's come back here. On my BTN left, which is one button, what we will do is we will register our handler, and to register it we call a method set on action. So btn left dot set on action. So we are registering our handler code. Handler is nothing but the handler object, and that is custom design listener or the handler object. So I have my custom class align left, and I'm instantiating that class here. Okay, so set on action, I pass an object of align left. Right, similarly in the button right, set on action, I will pass new object of align right. So I do have two different classes, align left and align right class, and we create object of it. Now let's have a look at what these classes are. So here I have defined those classes. I have my align left class and I have my align right class. Now look, when you are creating a class which is actually custom designed handler class or the listener class, okay, then it must implement the event handler. Okay, event handler. Now this event handler is a generic class, and here in the angular brackets we need to define what kind of event we want to handle. So right now it is a button click, it's action event. So in the angular bracket we say event handler for action event, that we need to implement. And implements, which means it is abstract class. Okay, sorry, it is interface. Now when it's an interface, it will be having abstract method, and we need to implement those abstract methods. So we are overriding handle abstract method, which is there in the event handler class. So what exactly we are doing, we are creating our custom defined class which implements event handler of action event, and then we override handle method. Handle method will take one parameter of the same type, like this one, action event E. Now this is a method which will be called automatically when this event is being performed by the user. So within this method, we will simply set the alignment of our text. So what I do is, my text is within hbox1, so I'll set alignment of hbox1 to the left or right. So align left, I set center left, and align right class, I will change my alignment to the right. And these two are the different user defined custom handler classes. Okay, now because of this classes, it is aligning to left or right. Let's understand this again. We have a button btn left. So btn left, I am registering one handler set on action, and that handler is nothing but the object of align left class. So align left class actually implements event handler. Event handler is an interface having abstract method. We implement that abstract method, which is handle, and within that handle method we write a code whichever we want to perform. When user performs an action, this handle method will be called automatically, and so this code will be executed. So let me save this code, run that again. So I have two buttons. When I click on this button, it will call the handle method of align left class, and if I click on this button, it will call the handle method of align right class. Now align right class handle method sets the alignment to right side, so when I click, it goes to right. When I click here on the left button, it goes to left, and so on. So that's the reason on the clicking we have the effect. That's what the event handling is. We stop here today. We will again start new session from this example. I'm stopping here because you can read event handling, you can digest this event handling code once, and tomorrow when we start a new session, we again revise and then go for different examples of sessions. Thank you for now.